The scene that changed Kung Fu Panda is this one. A moment of optimism against the obvious hurdle this whole movie has been about. How on earth does a panda become a master of Kung Fu? I never got around to seeing the sequels of this movie, and oddly enough, I'm not even sure if I even ever finished this one. I only remember seeing the first half in school classes all the time, or something like that. But nevertheless, we're here. Thanks, Sean Holiday, for technically a suggestion. Pitch more ideas for scene breakdowns on our Discord. We don't get many. And in case you too are a little rusty on the Kung Fu Panda plot up to this story beat, here it is. Po is a panda and seemingly highlighted as the next dragon warrior by accident. But with clear drive and a go-ahead from Master Oogway, Po is crammed through all sorts of trainings in preparation for Tai Lung's evil return. And he is failing at every step, missing the social cues and the physical. It's honestly quite a sad watch for the first hour of this film as you just watch a guy consistently and constantly taking L's. That is until we come to a revelation on the Po front.
Look at you.
In classic cartoony fashion, Po defies all logic and awakens a secret strength whenever the end goal is food. And when simply being told there are almond cookies on the top shelf, Po instantly reaches a state where they are
10 feet off the ground. Perfect split.
It is a great stride in the right direction. Perfect considering Master Oogway literally just vanished into a gust of peach blossom leaves. And so with Shifu finally coming to this revelation, he beckons Po to take it further.
Come with me.
It's time for the training montage. First up to the highest point on this mountain away from the temple, as this is a sacred place where Kung Fu supposedly began in the first place, where Oogway first learned as well. And one bit of importance exposition with some fantastic imagery later, we come to the montage. First, it's sit-ups on a tree, shown in first person so we can see Po's drive, trying to reach a bowl of dumplings. It's simple, it's silly, it's to the point. And of course, the tree breaks in these early stages. Oh, Po's still good enough to rescue the food. Shame about himself. Moving on, we scale up to a test of defense, as Shifu won't allow Po a moment to eat with a bowl in his hands. Again, from Po's sort of perspective, as we remain fixed on him and Shifu becomes just a blur on the screen, hitting from the sides seemingly out of nowhere. But you can see it developing briefly for Po as he goes from off guard to at least getting his chopping hand up. Shame about the bowl though. And now we all get the gist, Po has to just grab a dumpling off Shifu, unsuccessfully. First up close and personal before widening out as Po goes for more expansive swinging motions in desperation. And it's a great excuse to show off that beautiful landscape. Up next is push-ups, now with a licking chance to reach the food bowl. Dude doesn't even seem to notice the hot coal at his stomach. And also, it's evening now. Time is passing. Atop the very peak, we have a balancing trick now, glowing in that sunset aura very briefly shown before we swipe away to our next scene, with a little pizzazz in the transition. It's the whipping again, but this time Po is readier, able to kick deflect a few hits before one good gut punch takes him out of commission. The food is always safe though. That's nice. And though Po is improving, he's not perfect yet. Here's a shot with no food at all, but Po now has the choreography locked down. Are we sure this isn't just an excuse to bring out stunning environments? Push-ups have become finger pushings in the misty morning, and right after Shifu looks on acceptingly, we're back into the whipping action. But by this evening, in the glowing gold aura, Po can now hold his own little by little until we come to a full-on traditional layout of several bamboo-y backgrounds and harsh colors. Po now saturated in blues and reds before the panel splits out into three for multiple angles and just some choreography on the side ones, and the middle panel expands and spins around from the bird's eye view as other panels roll in, like this classic sunset mountaintop composition. Whoa! That certainly went everywhere all at once for a second, but it is a fantastic display of fan service to the aesthetic they're going for, what with traditional Eastern art imagery now animated into moving panels like this. And with all that burst of training over, we settle onto one final test with a slow cross dissolve onto a bowl full of dumplings, as Shifu comes in with his offer.
After you, Panda.
Of course, after everything we've seen, Po is suspicious, camera wide out, almost expecting something big to catch us off guard again.
And you have been trained. You are free to eat.
And yet, Shifu continues onwards, sitting settled up on yet another jaw-dropping landscape. More sunset glow, up a mountaintop that breaches even beyond the clouds. An absolutely mythical place.
Enjoy.
Keeping on guard and refusing to settle down like Shifu has, it's kind of funny how Po refuses to move, conserving energy where he can.
Hey!
But you knew it was coming. Also, I just have to point out, since it is from this moment, this particular frame you might have seen online before. A beautiful hidden gem of an Easter egg the animator snuck in there. I wish this was more of a common thing, to be honest, just funky frames. Remember this other one as well? Oh, I love it. Shifu's even looking directly at the audience here. Of course, there's one final test.
I said you are free to eat.
And he's taunting him too. And of course, Po, being the dumbass he is, continues unknowingly. Hey! This time with an aerial kick for a bit of variety and a very gloating chewing face. Po finally gets it now, and so the music is ready to kick in.
You are free to eat.
The camera dramatically turning around Po's face as the drums start to beat in as he's starting to get serious. And in the first move, the camera pans up as Po's attempt to scatter the dumplings fails as Shifu can just scoff them all there, leaving one final one. Now with a bird's eye view as the flying dumpling becomes the center of attention. And then, in a pretty simple slow-mo shot, it's taken from under Po's nose, literally. This isn't too fancy a camera trick, probably because this isn't too advanced of a technique from Po. Dude just tried to catch it with his mouth with no interruptions? What did he think was gonna happen? But though Po should have been defeated in one fell swoop, that's not the point, and Shifu kept the dumpling around for its true purpose, a proper fight. And clearly, Po is ready to fight for it. Welcome to the halfway mark, so if you haven't already, subscribe. Alright, bye. It's a chopstick battle, keeping it small scale for the early beats, and it's an interesting new dynamic of a battle. Cartoony goodness and still entertaining. But now we're done with this frame within a frame from the bowl shot, it's time to scale up. As now the bowl itself is part of the action, redirected this way and that way by Shifu to deflect from Po, and finishing off with a dramatic zoom in of both of their close-ups as it becomes a battle of wits for a moment. One seemingly more confident than the other, but Po is still determined despite it anyway. As it now becomes a game of shuffling cups, a new way to outwit your opponent in battle, as well as a good bit of foreshadowing for the final fight, as this very same technique will be coming back later against Tai Lung. Ironically, this final test of reaching a single dumpling will be thematically reflected as Po becomes the deflector over the dragon scroll later. By then, the student would have become the master of this very dynamic. Very cool. Anyway, Po successfully catches the thing, something that can't exactly be said to Tai Lung later. And it's celebrated with a little score beat too. And of course that woo. But Shifu isn't done yet. Still close up with a face of confidence, as he is the more dexterous with the pair of utensils, and even taking it further beyond the chopsticks now with his physical fingers. It's another step in the classic case of scaling up. First from dumpling to chopstick to bowl to fingers themselves. And as Po is forced more off the frame and off of the table, he chooses to expand the battlefield himself. Jumping back out to a bird's eye view of the whole table as Po darts the bowls to the side. And again, a stepped back wide angle as he hits the soul dumpling in the air. Only for Shifu to similarly retaliate with... Now reaching boundaries of the battlefield we haven't touched before, far beyond the tops of both of them. It's time to get moving for that prize. Of course, now presented in a newly heightened camera shot looking down on the two of them. And for the first time, Shifu looks surprised at Po's spryness. Not expecting to be caught, I guess, since last time reaching such height was so easy for the guy against Po. Or maybe it's the fact it was done with chopsticks after all that. Also, again, you gotta love some of these frames, like this one where Po looks like he's swinging Shifu at Mach 10 speeds or something. But in making sure this fight scene isn't just a good one, but a great one instead, the environment of the battle is actively moving as well, as the two look up and pause as the dumpling itself is continuing to drag along the chopstick. A time limit and quick time event prompt is brewing. After all, it'd be too boring to just have it stay stuck up that tree all the time, right? What follows now is a ground fight, as both bide their time for that inevitable drop, and of course this is Shifu's advantage, swooping around Po with his speed to knock him on his back, though for once Po lands it. And with this super wide shot we see a re-attempt at this as Po continues to cling on to Shifu. This time it actually works though. And just like that, all strategy goes out the window. Now that we're here for the QuickTime event, the camera once again goes slow-mo as Po just amateurly reaches out tongue first. But it is a nice opportunity to point out the radial blurring in this moment that centralizes around the dumpling as it's the main objective. Though the shot also keeps Po in focus, which is a neat juggling of focus on the two of them. And now we come to the interactive element of the score. Every hit is met with a beat that makes the whole thing feel so much more electric. I wish movies did this more. My only major reference for this is Pikmin, but you don't need to hear me ramble about that again. Still, of course, Po fails again here. First jabbed with a chopstick to the chin, and then the dumpling kicked far away. Again, expanding out the battlefield to evolve over time. And with a moment to think, Shifu finally opens up his real feelings of joy over these successes. And who needs chopsticks anymore? This battle has evolved beyond that. It's time for the signature staff instead. Perhaps this time with less successive hits. And so they fight alongside the hillside, now with Po deflecting each hit perfectly and juggling that dumpling occasionally too. And though it could have very easily been a series of close-ups for every successive deflect and dumpling hit, having the camera stand away and approaching the sequence as more of a one-shot very much ties into the cinematic signature of Eastern martial arts films, where the focus is often on the actor's choreography in one big take rather than the sensationalized Western approach. There is still some of that in here since there are cuts, but considering this movie is one big love letter to the martial arts genre, it would of course make sense for the camera work to have some of the same signature techniques. Very, very cool. And in one decisive move, Po steps on Shifu's staff, actively disarming his opponent and leads into the air to relocate the dumpling. A move that truly astounds Shifu with pride. And he even has that superhero landing too.
You're gonna do superhero landing. Wait for it!
Demonstrated with the lowest of angles onto Po's pose to highlight he has reached his maximum power in one fell swoop. And a nice little lens flare on the dumpling for extra drama. Not to mention in general, this color palette is great for having such a bright background color against our figure of black and white. Makes the whole thing very stark and nice on the eyes. And Shifu can do nothing but smile in awe of Po's massive feat. Success. And so, Po has finally earned his soul dumpling meal. Only for one last surprise as the camera looks away from Po.
I'm not hungry.
Not only has he evolved as a martial artist and a kung fu warrior, but as an emotionally mature person as well. Not needing to become so childish around food and knowing when to eat and when not to. And it's a new source of pride for Shifu too. And so with that final test passed and a new sense of accomplishment on both their parts, they bow as is tradition, and we cross-dissolve to our next scene, bolstered up with our new and improved protagonists. Well, I would say that if this wasn't the moment where practically everyone else gets destroyed. But that there was the scene that changed Kung Fu Panda. It is the turning point of optimism of plot that finally upgrades Po from a bumbling idiot into a Kung Fu Panda. Albeit in quite a goofy way. And the presentation of it all is just stellar. A fantastically creative battle sequence from start to finish. And the quality was so much so that it even sparked a national debate over in China about why Westerners had made a better film about Chinese culture than the Chinese themselves, which is certainly quite the accolade to take on. I just wonder if the sequels will live up to that foundation. For now though, I'll end it off here. My name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.